boring, soulless, outdated, most innovative gameplay for 2023. Hello world, my name is Leo, and today we are talking about my experience playing Starfield. I have never played a Bethesda game before, so I figured this might be a good entry point for me to learn what all the fuss is about. I've watched my brother play through a lot of Skyrim and Fallout, and I really wanted to see what makes Bethesda games so special and so acclaimed by so many people. I will put a disclaimer at the beginning of this video though. I did not finish Starfield, and therefore my video should not be considered is not considered a review, nor should it be treated as a review. This is purely my thoughts on the very limited experience that I had with just the opening first few hours and some of the systems that I became acquainted with. I think in total I got maybe 8 to 12 hours into the game, and the reason for that is I encountered so many obstacles that impeded my playtime, both from a gameplay perspective and from a technical perspective, that I just didn't feel the need to continue any longer. But I still felt like I experienced enough that I wanted to give my thoughts in video form just on my own experience alone. I will also say that I have seen the discourse, some of the discourse surrounding the game, obviously, as you can tell by the intro. When the game was first announced, I knew it was going to be a very important game for both Bethesda and for Xbox, because not only is it Bethesda's newest IP in over 20 years, it's also their first game since Fallout 76, which, as we all know, was a complete disaster, and it was also Xbox's next exclusive following up Redfall. So there was a lot of pressure on this game to try to be good and prove that Bethesda had gotten back on track. And the discourse all over Twitter was very strange. Everything from menu screens to fast travel and how much of it was required to traverse the world, and all of that stuff. Everything that I'm going to be talking about here is from my own personal experience. And just one more thing I would like to mention: this is fully unscripted. I don't have a script beyond the notes that I have in front of me. So yeah, let's just go ahead and start with describing the intro. Mild spoiler warning, I'm going to be describing the opening of the game and some of the quests that come up after that. So the game starts you out in a mine. You are here searching for some mystery item that you don't know about yet. Your company's been contracted to find this thing. And right away, the graphics look pretty good. I know a lot of people like to harp on the creation engine that Bethesda uses and say that it just looks outdated. Here they are really pushing it to its limits. The mine sequence in particular, this opening cutscene, I will say does look better than the rest of the game. It definitely seems like it was pre-rendered, but the graphics overall I was fine with. Same with the aesthetic, actually. The NASA punk style of futuristic technology mixed with early space technology. I actually found that to be really novel, and while I do wish the game was a bit more colorful in some areas, the game does seem to have a lot of muted grays and browns and stuff like that. I thought the gameplay, I thought the graphics and aesthetics were really pleasing, and I have no complaints there. So you start out in this mine, and you eventually find this artifact, which will be acting as our MacGuffin to propel the story forward for the game. You touch the MacGuffin, you get a like weird vision of space and spirally thing, and then you wake up and you are put into the character creator. And again, the character creator is actually really cool. There are quite a few, like you select from from a bunch of different like presets, and from there you can like completely change like hair color, hairstyle. There's like advanced settings if you want to do like facial width, and yeah, there's like a like grid kind of thing where you can use the arrow keys to like finely tune like your body shape and face shape and stuff like that, and I thought that was really cool. So after creating the Abercrombie and Fitch version of myself, I went into the class selection and I picked Ronin. I wanted to go into this game with a stealth build. I really like stealth in games, so Ronin started you out with the stealth skill, the melee skill, and scavenger, which like helps you loot better items. So I picked that, and right out of character creation, I encountered my first bug where I typed in my name. It didn't let me use my controller to type in my name. I had to use my keyboard. And I should say I was playing this game on PC via Game Pass. And after I exited out of character creation, after like typing in my name, I noticed that half of my buttons had stopped working. Like you'll see, I'm going to play a clip here where you can see me like strafing back and forth, and that's because my camera stopped working, but like clicking in the joystick, you can see me like punch. So like clicking in the joystick still works, but moving the camera doesn't. There were a few other buttons that didn't work. And when I went into my menu to look at the key bindings, half of the keys on my keyboard weren't working either. So I had to, in order to fix this bug, I actually had to exit out of the game and restart it. And so yeah, great first impression right there. But I've heard Bethesda games are buggy. This is fine. It wasn't completely game breaking. So we'll move on. So you exit the mine, and with the artifact, and your contact who like contracted your team to find the artifact, he comes down in his ship, but pirates seem to have followed him and they attack you. And this essentially acts as your combat tutorial. And again, like the combat actually feels pretty good. Like they give you a pistol, but I went up to a couple of people and managed to find an axe and started killing people with that. And like the guns and the melee weapons all feel like they have weight to them. They sound good. Enemies have like appropriate reactions to being hit. So yeah, like this minute to minute gameplay, this combat, I'm actually finding really nice. So after that, you are met by Barrett, who comes out of his ship, and it turns out he's the one who contracted the miners, and he works for an organization called Constellation, who are looking for these MacGuffins in order to like solve some big mystery. And once he finds out that you had a vision when touching it, he says that he wants to bring with you to Constellation. You are destined for bigger and better things in order to try and find out what's out there. So you leave and you get he gives you his ship, and you leave and you get the flight tutorial. And here is where you learn the power allocation system. And essentially how it works is you have 6 systems that include stuff like shields, the engines, like you have 3 different kinds of weapons, ballistics, lasers, and homing missiles, and you have your grav drive, which is like your hyper jump drive. And I really like this system too. I think this is a really like, it's like it doesn't feel invasive or like hard to understand. you just cycle between the systems, powering them and depowering them as different situations arise. For example, if you are just traveling, you'll want to boost your engines. If you're in combat, you might want to like stop boosting your engines and divert power more towards lasers. And different weapons are designed to do different things. Like lasers can get through shields better, whereas once you blast through the shields, ballistics are better for getting through the actual like hull of the ship. And speaking of like getting through the hulls of the ship and stuff, after you are done mastering the like power allocation system, it introduces you to the ship combat. And again, this system in combat feels really good. And dogfighting is basically your standard keep the enemy in your sights. If you keep the enemy in your sights for a certain period of time, it'll like auto lock on to make firing easier. And yeah, so far there are all of these individual systems that I really like. I like the graphics, the aesthetic, the character creator was cool, the minute-to-minute combat in both on the ground and in space feels good. The power allocation system I think is a good way of controlling the ship. I'm really, despite the bug that I had, I'm kind of optimistic for what's going to be coming up. After you defeat these pirates in space, you are told that in order to stop them from following you, there's an abandoned pirate base on a nearby planet and you need to go there. And this is where I had my first encounter with the stealth system in the game. Now, stealth was a mistake. Stealth in Starfield is incredibly basic, and it doesn't feel good at all. And for while I was playing, I couldn't put my finger on why it didn't feel good. Like, I seemed to always get seen. It seemed really hard to actually do stealth. Like, it seemed way easier to just, like, once combat was initiated, like after I failed the stealth, it felt way easier to just do combat. And so I was thinking back and rewatching my footage, and I think I have a good idea of why stealth feels bad. Now again, I want to emphasize that this is early game, and so I don't know if the game, obviously stealth would get better as you progress. So I'm only speaking from early game experience here, but the stealth does leave a really bad first impression. And I think I can boil it down to 3 reasons why after watching the footage and like thinking back on it. The first reason is that stealth in Starfield feels largely luck based. And what I mean by that is there aren't really a lot of options that Starfield gives you when it comes to stealth. Like in other stealth games, you have like the ability to take advantage of like shadows or vantage points, or you can like see enemies through walls, or you can have like sight cones. You have a mini map where you can see enemies around. You have different like ways of getting around, like in vents and stuff like that. In Starfield, granted, in the developer like showcase that we had back like during the Summer Games Fest, it showed off that there were vents in Starfield, but I did not encounter any, I didn't see any vents. So without the vents, Starfield basically doesn't give you anything to try and help you with stealth. Like, you have the bar, which tells you whether or not you are being seen, and you have like some natural cover, but that's basically it. There's no way to tell where enemies are facing. There's no way to tell how many enemies there are. You have this like radar on your watch, but enemies only appear on that radar if you can see them. There are no like, there's not really any like audio cues to be able to let you know if like where enemies are positioned and stuff like that. So yeah, if you are doing stealth, it generally feels like if you know that enemies are around the next corner, let's say, it doesn't tell you how many enemies there are because you can't see them on your HUD, and there's just no way of getting around the corner other than going around the corner. So when I say it feels largely luck based, it's like your only choice in stealth is to go around the corner and hope that the enemies are not facing your direction. So it's essentially a 50-50 shot as to whether or not your stealth is going to succeed in that scenario, and a lot of times that scenario is like the only thing that you're really presented with. I should say that I did get 2 like sneak attacks off during my playtime, but those felt like luck because I happened to come across enemies that weren't patrolling and who happened to be facing a wall. So yeah, any other time if enemies were even like moving at all, like there was no chance of me succeeding. And it didn't, that can be attributed to skill issue, but it's also like it felt like the game wasn't helping me at all to do that. The second thing, and I can't tell if this is true or not, but the enemy sight lines feel really hyper-tuned. Like it feels like enemies can see you from areas that they shouldn't be able to see you from, or like no matter how far away you are, the bar will fill up the same amount every time. So no matter where I was or how far away I was, if the enemy was like vaguely facing me, they would see me like almost immediately. And you know, like that doesn't feel good. Like I've seen enemies see me from across long hallways. There was this one scenario where like I was trying to sneak around this corner, and I could see, or like I could tell that there were enemies probably around the corner, and I could see someone's flashlight like on a floor above across from me, but like I could barely see them, but somehow the enemy on the like floor above could see me. And again, like I couldn't tell where they were facing, so the best I could do was like slowly back away. But I couldn't tell why the enemy was able to see me so fast, given the like difference in elevation. There was also cover from the railing and like kind of from the ceiling, because the ceiling was at a different elevation. So I don't know what was going on there. And then there was a third example where I was walking across like this walkway area and on the second floor of a giant room, and I didn't even know, I had just got done with a massive firefight, and I didn't know there were any other enemies in the room, but I was still crouching just to be safe, and an enemy immediately saw me from across the room on the floor below, and it was just like, really? Like, how was the enemy able to see me that quickly from down there, despite all of the like railings and like obstructions that should have came from that angle? So yeah, that again like kind of plays into stealth being kind of luck based, but it doesn't help that like enemies seem to be able to see you a lot better than you are able to see them. And the third thing, so these first 2 points, like I said before, can be attributed to skill issue. Maybe I'm just not that great at stealth. This is a new stealth system than what I'm used to. I'm used to systems like in Dishonored and Uncharted 4, and those games have a lot of systems to be able to help you stealth efficiently. Those games give you a lot of control over your environment and like being able to memorize patrols and stuff like that, that you can't do in Starfield. But again, maybe I'm just not used to this system. This third point, though, is, I don't know why this is how it is, but your companions will break your stealth even if you are remotely seen. So, for context, the stealth bar that you have, it has 3 levels: hidden, caution, and danger. Hidden obviously means that no one knows you're there, no one knows where you are. Caution, as far as I know, means that enemies have seen you or have an idea that you're there, but they don't exactly know where you are, and they haven't quite initiated combat yet. Danger means that you are being attacked. They know where you are, they are firing at you, and you essentially can't stealth unless you try to rehide. Now, let me show you an example. Let's go back to that one example with the ceiling and the flashlight and stuff like that. Let me show you what happens when my bar hits caution from the enemy up above with the flashlight seeing me. Yeah, and it hits caution. You'll see that Vasco just rushed in and started shooting all of the enemies. I had not been fully seen yet. Combat had not yet been initiated. I was backing away to try to reset my stealth and try to figure out a new plan of approach, and my robot companion Vasco just rushed in, guns a-blazing, and completely ruined everything. And all of the I had two companions over the course of my playtime, Vasco and Sarah. And Sarah also did the same thing. And looking back at my footage, it looks like your companion AI is set to engage the enemies on caution, not on danger. Because again, with Sarah, when I hit caution and I was trying to rehide, that was when Sarah started engaging the enemies and shooting at them. And even before any of the enemies started shooting, she would shoot. And I have no idea why the companions are set to do this. You can't give the companions commands, by the way, as far as I know. You cannot tell them to wait. You cannot tell them to change their fighting style, act more defensively or more aggressively. It's just, if you hit caution, better expect a firefight, even if you aren't involved in it, because your companion and the enemies are going to get involved in a firefight. And at that point, you might as well not stealth, because all the enemies are already going to be alerted and facing your direction anyway. So, yeah. Stealth in Starfield feels really bad. It does not feel like this game is designed around stealth. It feels like it's designed around the combat, which again is good, but I feel like they could have put more stuff in here to make stealth a more viable playstyle, or make it give the player more control over that system. Or they could have programmed your companion AI to not rush in until you were for sure seen and in combat. I have no idea why they would program the companions to behave this way. So that was a long tangent, but I got through the pirate base and I talked to the pirate captain. There's a persuasion mechanic. I convinced him to not chase my ship anymore. The only thing that I have to say on the persuasion mechanic is basically it gives you a set of choices, and each choice fills up a bar, has a chance of filling up a bar, and once the bar is filled up, you've successfully persuaded the person, and some choices are harder to do than others, so it's like a risk-reward kind of thing. The only thing that I have to say on this persuasion system is that aside from this tutorial with the pirate captain, I persuaded someone twice, or I persuaded two other people. I had two more instances of it, and both times I got critical successes on the first choice that I made and immediately succeeded, even though I hadn't put any points into persuasion. So that's kind of strange. I found that really odd, but I don't know if the system is like that all the way through, so I don't have any more comments on that. So you get through the pirate base, and then you are transported to, you fast travel to New Atlantis, which is like the main hub city, and it is the place where Constellation calls home. And really quick, as you go into New Atlantis, I believe it does encourage you to like pull up the map at some point. I'm gonna tell you right now, the map is entirely useless. It is just these like dots with, there's like three or four different regions of the city, and all it shows on the map are those four regions in a sea of dots. There's no like maps of the locations within each region. There's no like paths. You can't see like roads or anything. It's just the icons for the regions and the dots. And it's entirely useless. It's impossible to read anything on it other than like which region your objective is. And like the regions might as well be placed in a straight line on this map for all the good that this map does. It does not matter where these icons are placed. That's how little information is conveyed through this map. But anyway, so you go to Constellation and you give the MacGuffin to them, and you meet the members, and these are the people that you are going to be working with, and they tell you that you are destined for bigger and better things again, and you're going to see what's out there and solve this big mystery, and you're a part of it because you saw these visions. And it's here that I was like, okay, something feels off, because all of the stuff that I was talking about was stealth. I had these thoughts after looking back on it. Like in the moment when I visited Constellation, I specifically remember thinking to myself, this feels off. Like the words that came to mind were rigid and sterile. Like it didn't feel like I really had any connection to any of the events that had happened. And it almost felt like they were telling me that what they were doing was important and that I was important and stuff like that. But it didn't, the game itself wasn't conveying that I was like important, or that what I was doing was important or anything like that. And I've seen some discourse on Twitter, and some gaming news outlets said this as well, that the game takes about 20 hours to actually get good. Everything before that just feels incredibly slow. And after playing up to where you first meet Constellation, and again, looking back on that, I think I know why I felt the way I felt, and I think I know why it doesn't, I think I know why these beginning hours feel really slow. And again, I can boil it down to three different reasons. The first one is that when you really think about it, the opening moments of this game are really generic. Like nothing exciting really happens. Like if you think back to the opening of Skyrim, which is like so iconic at this point. Like you wake up in the cart and they say like, you're finally awake, and you're a prisoner, and you do the character creation and you're about to get executed, but then a dragon attacks the village, you run into a nearby tower, and then you are presented with either running away with the Stormcloaks or running away with the Imperials. That whole sequence has an epic setup with like the dragon coming in and attacking. It has stakes, and you are making your first real choice, because whoever you choose to run away with could influence what faction you become a part of later in the game. Here in Starfield, all you do is touch a MacGuffin. You have a vision that like means nothing. All it is like space, and like you're attacked by pirates, and like they have a name like the Crimson Fleet, but at the end of the day it's just space pirates. And then like after you leave the planet, you fight more pirates, and then you fight more pirates, And then you go to New Atlantis, and that is essentially like the entire thing. And like, so take the opening of Skyrim, but replace the dragon with a rock, and replace the Imperial Guards and the Stormcloaks with just bandits. And that's essentially what you have for the opening for Starfield. There's no like set piece moments to really set up that what you're doing is important. And keep in mind that the whole time you're doing this, you have people constantly telling you that you are important and you're moving on to bigger and better things, and it just doesn't feel that way. Which leads me to my second point, which is that the scale of the world and the epicness of your quest are not set up properly. Like, when you're flying up into space and you're like having the flying tutorial and you're fighting the pirates and stuff like that, you're not actually moving through space. You are just moving in like the atmosphere of a planet, staying in one spot while you are taking out these pirates. You don't actually get to fly through space. All of the traveling from planet to planet is done through fast travel. So the like scale of the world is kind of lost on you, because all of the areas you're going to, including the areas where you're in space, just feel like areas. It doesn't feel like this vast, expansive world. Another thing is that like you're told, like you're trying to figure out like what's out there, like what mysteries are still out there, but the galaxy already feels pretty explored. At least like that's the impression that you kind of get from the beginning. Like none of the planets you visit are particularly empty or have anything particularly new on them. And so this whole like mystery and you're going on to bigger and better things, like I feel like all of that is just kind of, at least from my perspective, it's just kind of lost. The like epicness and the scale isn't properly conveyed in that way. I don't know. I hope that made sense. And I know that my thoughts on this and like my experience as a whole is probably an outlier, but it is something that I did want to like. That is something I want to talk about, because it didn't feel right. Like everyone kept saying it was epic, but it didn't feel epic. Like nothing about the world or anything like that conveyed that. And then the third thing, which is again probably the most important thing and the most damning thing, is early progression doesn't feel good. Now, progression is something I haven't touched on yet, other than I said my starting skills were stealth, scavenging, and melee. So how you earn skill points is like you earn XP from killing enemies and stuff like that, and once you like looting stuff, killing enemies, stuff like that, and once you get enough XP, you get a skill point. Very typical of like open world games like this. And each of the skills that you have, and there's like a bunch, there's five different categories. Each one has 4 different tiers, and each tier has like 5 skills per tier, and each skill has 4 ranks that you can put in it. It's a very expansive list of skills, but whenever you get a skill point, you can use that to unlock a new skill. But then in order to rank up that skill, you need to fulfill certain requirements. For example, I had started with a point in stealth. In order to be able to unlock the next rank of stealth to put a new skill point in that rank, I needed to get 10 sneak attacks. I later on, after the like pirate base, after like going through that, I got a new skill point and I put it in pistols, and that started the like pistol ranking. And in order to unlock the next rank of pistol to put a skill point in there, I needed to get 25 pistol kills. And all of the skills are like this. You put a skill point in to initially unlock it, and then you fulfill a certain requirement, unlock the next rank, put a skill point in, and each rank requires you to do harder and harder requirements. For example, if I were to like look beyond the different ranks for stealth, it would say like 10 sneak attacks and then like 20, or like probably 10, 15, 20, 30 or something like that when it comes to ranking these up. So the requirements get progressively harder with each rank that you need to unlock. At first, I kind of liked this system because it incentivizes you to use the skills that you are trying to progress. It encourages you to like use your playstyle that you want. However, I grew very quickly to not like this system. And again, there are 3 reasons that I found why why early progression at least feels really bad. The first, and this is more kind of a nitpick, but in the end, these requirements just kind of feel like chores. There's not really a natural sense of progression. It feels like you are being made to do busy work in order to progress. Like, for example, I unlocked, very late in my time playing, I unlocked the fitness, tier, or like the fitness skill, which allows me to increase my inventory size, which we will talk about that later. In order to rank it up, in order to unlock the next rank, I needed to run 100 meters with my inventory 75% full or more. And so I happened to be on New Atlantis when I got this skill, so I just ran around New Atlantis. I just sprinted around New Atlantis until I reached 100 meters. And like, I was thinking to myself, like, this doesn't feel like it just felt like busy work. Like, it was so easy for me to unlock. Like, why would I wait to unlock that like naturally in combat when I can just run around and do it now? But like, it was really boring to do that. And so yeah, like these requirements, it doesn't feel natural. It just feels like chores, like side content or errands that you would do, except for it's required for core progression. And it just like feels really gamey. Like you have to try to game encounters to try to like progress, like use your pistol when you normally wouldn't use your pistol or something like that. And that actually leads me to my second point. Early on, this system actively disincentivizes you from experimenting with like other builds and other weapons. So later on, in a different combat encounter, I had found a shotgun, and this shotgun was a lot of fun to use. I ended up in a lot of like close quarter areas, and the shotgun was way more effective than the pistol when it came to taking them down. But I hadn't put any skill points into shotgun yet. And so I was at a point where like my pistol, since I had put a skill point in that, every kill I would get with the pistol would get me XP and closer to unlocking the second rank. With the shotgun, all I was getting was XP. I wasn't advancing any ranks because I hadn't put a skill point in shotguns yet. So in the back of my mind, the whole time I was using the shotgun, I was like, I should be using the pistol here because I'm like hurting my progression right now. I'm not progressing as efficiently as I could be. I should be using the pistol here. That's the most efficient way to progress. And it gets even like, it goes even further than that, because when I went into this game, I wanted to do I really did want to do the typical like stealth archer thing, because I like stealth, and I figured it'd be really cool for Starfield to do like a silenced sniper build where I could get a sniper with a silencer on it and like fire at enemies from a distance and then use my pistols like my sidearm. But snipers, like upgrading sniper weapons, you can't unlock that until the third tier of the combat tree. So like, and in order to unlock the third tier of skills, you need to invest skill points in like enough in tier 1 and in tier 2. So it would be like hours and hours into the game before I'd be able to start upgrading snipers. So if I found one earlier than that, I did not find a sniper during my my own time playing, I should say, but if I had found one this early on, I wouldn't be able to upgrade it for like possibly a good 20 hours or so. And then the third way that this progression is not good, and this part, again, is the most baffling part. Some basic features are locked behind this progression system. Like some basic features that other games just give you out of the gate are locked behind this system. I ran into two examples, or I found out about two examples during my time playing. The first one, believe it or not, is stealth. You know that bar that I kept referencing, the one that says like hidden, caution, danger? You actually don't have that bar unless you put a point in stealth. And that is one of the only things that the game gives you in terms of like your HUD to help you in stealth. So without it, you essentially like can't stealth at all. And granted, like people who aren't going for stealth builds wouldn't put a point in stealth, but I still feel like that HUD option should be there, given that basically every other game that has stealth has that meter or a version of that meter unlocked by default. Like, why would you put that behind a progression system? And then the other one I found out about, which I couldn't believe, is jetpacks. So jetpacks in this game, in Starfield, are important because they are your only way of getting around on the ground besides on foot. There are no vehicles in this game, and these environments are pretty big, so if you don't want to just like hoof it everywhere, you're going to be using your jetpack. And even that mission where you go to Constellation for the first time and you give them the MacGuffin, they give you a jetpack to be able to use. You cannot use that jetpack that you have just been given by the game until you put a point in the jetpack skill. And I have no idea why that is designed that way. I have no idea why Bethesda decided to do that. Why would you give the player a new toy to play with and then not let them use that toy immediately? So like, of course, when I got it, I happened to have a leftover skill point. I put it right into jetpacks, not because I wanted to, but because I wanted to at least have the option available to me to use it if I wanted. And I don't know if there are any other ones besides that. Again, those were the only two I found, but those two alone, it baffles me to no end that these things would be locked behind progression when they are such basic features that other games would just give you. So yeah, circling all the way back around to my initial argument, or like why the opening feels so slow. Progression doesn't feel good early on. Like, I can imagine this system being great once you get like 20 hours in and you have a bunch of skills unlocked, because at that point, every kill you get with every weapon and whatever like play styles you decide to switch between, like between stealth, combat, like using your jetpack to be more mobile, once you have a lot more skills unlocked, all of your actions are going to be advancing the ranks more and more. But early on, the first few skills that you unlock, you are encouraged to stick with those skills and not experiment, because it is just less efficient to experiment. And so, yeah, if your progression doesn't feel good until about 20 hours in, then it's no wonder why the opening feels so slow and tedious, because you are having to try to grind through all these chores to try to progress. And so, yeah, okay. So, that is the opening. why it feels so slow. That is my thoughts on stealth, my thoughts on, like, my small thoughts on combat and flying and everything. After I played that section, I actually played all of that section in one go. I waited until the DLSS update came out because, number one, I just didn't have as much time as I wanted to play, and number two, because my computer ran into performance issues. That's something I haven't really touched on yet, performance. So to give you an idea of the hardware that I am working with, my PC has an RTX 3080. It has an i9 processor. I believe the exact model is like 10900F or something like that. An i9 10900F processor. 2 terabyte SSD storage, and 64 gigabytes of RAM. So, in case you don't know what any of that means, it essentially means that my PC is no slouch. It is definitely towards it's not the highest end PC, but it is definitely towards the higher end. And I bought it specifically for this channel so that I could play any game that I wanted to and record any game that I wanted to without issue. And I thought that would include Starfield. However, and like at first, it seemed to be running the game fine. Like I was running at 60 FPS and I was running everything like on high or ultra. Everything was going good, but then a couple of hours in, I started encountering issues where like trying to interact with things would cause my game to freeze. And then after that would happen, like the game would play, but like audio would cut out. And specifically like the ambient sounds of the game would play, but like the music would cut out and start like flickering in and out. It was very strange. At one point, I think I lost some footage from my initial playthrough of my first couple of hours because my game froze to a point where my recording got corrupted and I had to like delete some of it.
Atlantis relies on advanced hydroelectrics for most of its power.
So anyway, my next section of the game was after the DLSS update came out, and how my computer performed, we will leave for a little bit later, but I wanted to very quickly go over what happened after I visited Constellation. So I went out, I visited my parents because I had the like kid stuff trait. You can assign yourself traits, optional traits in the character creator. And that part was kind of cool. I went on a side quest that involved having to go to all of the different regions of New Atlantis and having to find these like signal nodes for this dude who was trying to investigate a tree. It was just a fetch quest, not very exciting stuff. And then I decided to do another main quest. Now, for this next mission, Sarah was assigned to be my companion, and I could not get rid of her, which kind of sucked because I wanted to experiment with being alone, but it is what it is. We go to Mars to try and investigate something. I have another instance where the person who told me to go to Mars, I actually had to play through twice because interacting with the fast travel point to get back to my ship caused my game, actually my entire PC, to freeze, and I had to force shut down my PC and reboot everything in order to get the game working again. So that wasn't fun. I lost a little bit of footage there, but I went to Mars and I went down across 3 rooms to this bartender, and I persuaded him to tell us that we needed to go to Venus. So we went to Mars to just talk to one dude and then leave. We spent like maybe a total of 5 minutes on Mars. And I was like, why is it structured like this? So then we go to Venus, and it's like ship stealth, where you're flying above Venus and you have to interact with a satellite while other like enemy ships are off in the distance. And once you interact with the satellite, it tells you to go to the to some place called the Galactic Nova base, um, elsewhere, not on Venus. And so I'm like, okay, so it told me to go to Mars for 5 minutes, and then it told me to go to Venus for like 2 minutes. So already, like, I'm questioning why it's structured like this, but okay, I get it. It's like you're supposed to travel between a bunch of different locations. And so I go to the Galactic Nova base, and it's here that I encounter something that I'd seen in the discourse, but I hadn't actually thought I would encounter here. So there was a lot of discourse surrounding the boundaries, the like area boundaries. Essentially, if you try to like run and explore off the beaten path and you just run in a straight line, you will eventually hit an edge where it tells you that you need to either backtrack or fast travel to the next area of the world in order for it to like load so you can keep exploring. I had thought that that only applied to ground traversal. I did not know that it also applied to space until this moment. So I fast travel to Earth. The Galactic Nova base is actually orbiting the moon, but looking at the map, I made a mistake. I thought it was orbiting Earth. I fast traveled to Earth. And so I go to the space around Earth and I see the moon in the distance, and I see my objective marker right there. So I start trying to head towards it. And it doesn't take me long to notice that my objective's not getting any closer. And I am like boosting, and I'm trying to like find a way, like a certain angle to where I can get to it. But I'm not getting any closer. I could not go around Earth to get to the moon. I had trapped myself in the segmented box of space that housed Earth. And in order to get to the moon, I had to go into my menu and fast travel there. Like I couldn't even use my like grav jump or like hyper jump to be able to get to the moon. I had to fast travel and go through a loading screen. And like, I cannot even begin to describe how immersion breaking that is. Both Outer Wilds and No Man's Sky, both other space games, were able to have seamless travel between planet and space and within space itself. No Man's Sky even has a hyper jump that you can use anywhere in space to be able to mitigate the distance between planets. And those are both indie projects. They had a much smaller team and a much smaller budget than Bethesda and Starfield did, and yet those two games are so much more immersive than Starfield is when it comes to its travel. I should not have had to open a menu and have the moon load. I should have just been able to go around Earth because it was right there. And so anyway, you dock at the Galactic Nova base, and this whole sequence just goes horribly wrong. Sarah isn't. I already showed a couple of instances already, but Sarah is just gung-ho. I accidentally hit caution on the bar. It breaks my stealth because there's this hallway that I'm trying to get down that has no other way to approach, like to get further into the base. It's just this hallway, and there are guys down there who are staring down this hallway who like aren't moving, so there's no way for me to stealth around them. And so I accidentally break my stealth. I get the bar up to caution. Sarah starts firing, get further in, and it's here where the inventory system is the most exacerbated. Now, I haven't talked about the inventory yet because I wanted to talk about other things. But you know how I said that companions break stealth, and so I wanted to experiment with being alone, but for these 2 missions I had assigned companions I couldn't get rid of. The thing is, you essentially need a companion whenever you go out and explore, because your inventory feels so incredibly small. Like when I first started out, I started out with the scavenger skill, which means I loot a lot more and stuff like that. And there's a lot of stuff to pick up and a lot of stuff that could be valuable. So I was picking up a lot of different stuff, and I was like giving it, and I had to like give a lot of it to Vasco, and I had to give a lot of it to Sarah, and I eventually learned that picking up just like random stuff and like random decorations, even if they are valuable, is just a waste of inventory space. Like, because you are going to have like a few spacesuits on you, a few outfits on you, a few weapons on you, and like you're going to want, like if you want to experiment, you're obviously going to have more than one weapon, and then each weapon might have like different attachments and different modifiers depending on how rare it is. And that stuff takes up a good amount of your inventory, and that's not including like healing items and like materials and stuff like that. So you are constantly going to have to like give, like if you want to sell like duplicate items, if you want to like pick up like outfits and weapons are worth quite a bit of money, but if you want to pick them up, you're going to need a companion with you. And if you want a companion with you, then your stealth is going to be a lot harder. But yeah, you are pretty much disincentivized from picking up a lot of different like random things. The game essentially forces you to only pick up essential items. And that shouldn't be the case in an RPG. So anyway, that's my complaint on the whole inventory thing. Back to this encounter at the Galactic Nova base. So I try to stealth, it gets broken again because an enemy goes through a door as I'm like approaching it. After I kill some enemies, this is the part where I found the shotgun, but like I'm trying to get pistol kills to further my rank, so I keep switching between weapons, and like the shotgun's working really well, but I'm keep having to like stay behind cover and use the pistol. And at one point I kill all the enemies and I close the door to try to like back off and try to like lose aggro, but then Sarah immediately reopens the door and starts shooting again. And it, like, I kill more enemies, and then I close the door again, and I actually succeed in running away this time, and I expect Sarah to follow me, except for she doesn't. She just apparently opened the door again and started shooting, because the whole time that I'm, like, hidden and looting on, like, the floor above, I can hear her down there shouting insults at the enemies, and, like, gunfire happening. So eventually I just give up on stealth. And this whole time, my game is starting to like seize up. Like there are moments where I'm like taking shots, and like shooting is causing my game to freeze for a few seconds, and it's super disorienting. There's this one shot in towards the later half of the encounter that is one of the most memorable moments for me, and really I think like the fact that this moment is so much more memorable than anything else that happened really encapsulates my experience. So, if there's one thing that was clear to me after this combat encounter, it is that the DLSS update did not help at all. My computer is still having serious issues trying to run this game. And after this whole encounter, I didn't really end up playing for all that much longer. My performance issues that just got too numerous, and it all culminated in this moment when I was on New Atlantis. Sorry, my voice is going out. I'm not used to talking this long. And I decided to do this mission that was like investigating brownouts in the well, and the well is apparently like a section of New Atlantis under the main city where people live. And right away, as soon as I get there, the crowd density seemed a lot higher, so I was like, okay, my computer's probably gonna have some issues. And sure enough, I'm walking through, music's cutting out. I should mention that I did not record this part because I had Task Manager open, and throughout the combat encounter, it was showing me that OBS was using a surprising amount of memory. Like, whenever my game would freeze, it seemed like memory was the issue. It would say my memory would be at 100% max capacity. And so I was wondering if OBS might be the problem. So I stopped OBS and I just had the game and Task Manager open. And the problem was not OBS, it was 100% the game. So I get a mission to like check these fuse boxes from this one lady, and I go to interact with the box, and my game freezes. And I look over at Task Manager, and it says my memory is at 100%. And I actually watched this happen in real time, because it said for both Task Manager and Starfield, even though it was at 100%, it said that both of them were using 0 megabits per second of memory, or whatever the unit of measurement is for that. So I think to myself, oh no, there is something very wrong. I go to close the game using the task bar at the bottom. My entire computer freezes. I try to Control-Alt-Delete and stuff, and my computer blue screens. And I have a photo of it right here. You guys can see it for yourself. Funnily enough, you know how it says like we'll collect data and then restart your computer? It didn't do that. The percentage stayed stuck at 0. I actually had to force reboot my computer again out of a blue screen in order to fix my PC. And at that point, I was just grateful that my PC even turned back on at all. So, after that, I began thinking about my experience. And I was like, what can I do to continue? And then I realized that I just didn't care. And so I uninstalled the game. Nothing about my time with Starfield made me care enough about it to want to continue. There are systems that I cannot comment on because I did not experience them fully. Stuff like the weapon mods and crafting and shipbuilding. Obviously the story I can't comment on. The character writing I can't really comment on, even though nothing I saw during the opening moments was all that spectacular. It was like fine for what it is, I guess, but I can't really comment on that. But I just didn't feel the need to experience any of it, because everything that I had done just felt like obstacles, from stealth to the inventory to fast travel, and like traveling in general, to the companions, to especially the performance. Everything about this game seemed set to try to impede my fun. And so I just didn't care anymore. And I want to cap off the whole performance discussion with a quote from Todd Howard. And believe it or not, it's not the one that you're thinking. You're probably thinking of the It Just Works one from Fallout 76, but no, this one's a lot more recent. But I think it's extremely relevant here. So I'll go ahead and play that clip.
Why did you not optimize this game for PC? We did. It's running great. It is a next-gen PC game. We really do push the technology, so you may need to upgrade your PC for this game, but it's got a lot of great stuff going on in it, and the fans are responding awesome.
Just buy a better PC, he says. It runs great on PC, he says. Now, theoretically, the stuff about buying a new PC is technically true. I mean, I could upgrade to like a 40 series card. I'm sure that would probably fix at least some of the issues, although it's not guaranteed. 2 terabyte to 4 terabyte, I could use more space, stuff like that. Or, here's an idea, Todd. You could make sure your game is fully optimized before release, instead of telling half your fan base to pay possibly hundreds of dollars in order to get your $70 game to function properly. Now, I do want to address, could I have lowered the settings and it probably would have worked better? Yes, although I don't know how much experimenting it would have taken to get there, but I was already so tired of being in menus for this game, both in the settings menu, in the inventory menu, in the map. I was so tired of spending so much time in menus in this game, and I shouldn't have to lower the settings because I have a good computer. As far as I know, there is nothing wrong with my computer itself that should be causing these issues. And so, in my opinion, based on just the discourse and my own experience and everything, I think that Bethesda needs to make a hard course correct. I have heard that Elder Scrolls 6 is going to be Todd Howard's last game. I don't know if he is necessarily the problem, but a leadership change, an engine change, a game design philosophy change, something needs to change, or else Bethesda is just going to continue this downward spiral, this tragic downfall of this once prolific studio. And based on this experience, feel free to let me know in the comments. Those of you who have played Starfield and other Bethesda games, are Bethesda games like this? I'm not sure I want to try Skyrim or Fallout or any of them after playing this. And if I got anything wrong about any of these systems, please feel free to educate me on anything that I missed or anything that I might have gotten wrong. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on why either you like or dislike Starfield or Bethesda games in general if you have played them. But for me, I have concluded that Starfield will be a waste of my time if I continue it. There are other games that I want to review, and Starfield is just not worth it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. A really quick thing at the end here. I do want to start making more of these. I'm still having a little bit of trouble figuring out what kinds of videos I want these to be. So any feedback that you have would be greatly appreciated. Again, please feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments on anything I said or on this video in general. And yeah, thank you guys all so much for your support. I really enjoy talking about games, and this gives me a platform to do that. And to those of you who watched it, just thank you for listening to me ramble. And I hope this unscripted, casual discussion format was good for you, and worked to convey my points and stuff like that. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in whatever you decide to watch me in next. Goodbye.